You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is April 29th, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today, we are going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to talk about a new movie that's coming out, Animal Farm, which for libertarians, that should sound like a great movie. Conservatives too, I imagine. But man, they seem to have Ministry of Truth this one. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and also too, we're going to talk about indictments that were sent out against the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and maybe some of the implications of that, maybe in engineering hate and division in the country. And also, too, we will talk a little bit about the recent Trump assassination attempt. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to the panel. With us here today, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So we always like to start out with a Liberty quote of the day. And since we're doing Animal Farm, I thought what better person to take a quote of than George Orwell. And if you happen to be watching right when we tuned in, I accidentally had it up on the screen, so it won't be a complete surprise, but here goes. So the Orwell quote is, "The past was erased, the erasure was forgotten, the lie became truth." And of course, this is from 1984. And we're going to be talking about Animal Farm a little bit, but these two works of his were pivotal in showing some of the problems with, with government controlling everything. Essentially, the idea that, it gets in place, and then to keep itself in place, it starts manufacturing the truth, and just gaslighting everybody. And we've seen an awful lot of gaslighting recently. So I think Orwell would probably think we're kind of on the way toward his dystopia. But I kind of like this quote too, because I feel like some of these renditions of Animal Farm, which is a wonderful book, I totally recommend people reading that to their kids, or reading it just for themselves. It's great for a kid who's probably 9 or 10 years old with an adult's help, or an adult will enjoy it too. But it is an analogy to the Russian Revolution and how communism started and how it sort of fell apart, with Stalin coming to power. And it's told from the perspective of a bunch of barnyard animals who are having a revolt on their farm, against the people who are the overseers of the farm. So it's kind of it sounds like a stretch, but it's a wonderful story. So it's well worth reading. But it does feel like, and we're going to get into this a little bit more as we dive into the show later, about how it feels like they've taken away some of the core messaging. But anyway, what's your thoughts on all this, Leon?
About the quote, there's another similar quote that I don't even know who's the author of that quote, but they said you repeat a lie many times, and suddenly it becomes true. And this is kind of what Orwell is saying in his quote, is that you don't even know who might have made up the lie, but it's been repeated so many times in our society that it becomes part of our vernacular. We saw quite a lot of this during COVID. Look at things that they told us. And honestly, most of us believed so many things that were told to us, and Mr. Fauci became the science, but a lot of it was based upon pure lies. And now when you look at the postmortem of what happened during COVID, a lot of it, and most of it, I'll have to say, were nothing but falsehoods. But yet, many of us believed it because it was repeated so often that it just became part of our vernacular, and our behaviors are modified because of those lies. I mean, take for instance, there's no scientific backing for the social distancing that they were mandating during COVID, but yet so many of us, including myself, practice the social distancing, but yet there's no scientific backing for it. And like the schools were being closed down. Oh my God, COVID was so horrible. COVID was so horrible. But the kids were the least vulnerable.
Yeah.
And still.
And Leon, just to jump in too on the number there, it wasn't that necessarily people don't believe that viruses are transferable, but the 6-foot distancing, that was just made up. That was pulled out of whole cloth. There was no science to back that up as far as that being the right distance. It could have been more, it could have been less. The government just threw a number out at us, told us it was the science and don't question it. So sorry, go ahead, Leon.
Yeah, that's fine. But this was a problem with COVID, and this is a problem about repeating the lie so that it becomes true. I mean, we even had the Biden administration attempting to set up this ministry. Well, no, they didn't call it a ministry, agency to manage disinformation. Yeah. Imagine that, a central power, the federal government of these United States, a country where free speech is so important, trying to fund the agency that is supposed to manage misinformation and disinformation.
Right. And for our viewers, if you want to go look this up, this was the Department of Homeland Security, and they were going to have like you said, a board of disinformation. I think it was under a woman named Nina Jankowicz. And yes. She was, and it would have happened too, because it was not a sexy type of thing to go watch these congressional hearings and listen to senators ask her about, hey, what kind of information should be getting out and all that. But this woman posted a video of herself singing the way she likes to police speech to show tunes. I'm not kidding you. It was to Mary Poppins Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And I mean, when you saw this woman singing this stuff, you realize this lunatic is trying to police her speech. So, and if it wasn't for that, we might very well have a ministry of truth that is sitting in here under the Department of Homeland Security, deciding what is true and what is not. Exactly. And being able to silence people if they think they're speaking wrong speak. So sorry, Leon, I just wanted to make sure.
No. This is all good, very good information about the points being made here. I think we in the liberty movement, we believe that the best way to deal with bad speech is to sanitize it through good speech.
Yeah, there is no shortcut to the truth around free speech. I mean, just get that out there. I mean, that's what science is all about. You have to have free speech to truly practice science. Right?
Absolutely. So you put your ideas into the marketplace. And let it be scrutinized. If it can withstand scrutiny, it will survive. If it cannot, it should and will die. That is how we on the side of liberty function in a relatively free society. But what these people, and this is where the Orwell quote comes in, what these people want is to have managed speech where they could tell us what is right, what is good speech, and what is not. And we saw this during COVID, and it's a really scary thing that our First Amendment rights were so easily taken away based on nothing but falsehoods. So George Orwell is absolutely correct in his quote.
Yeah. Well, I think this leads us nicely into our first story, which is there is a movie coming out this Friday, May 1st, and it's geared mostly towards children. So, and like we said, the book could be for children too, but it's certainly geared toward adults in mind as well. But this movie is geared toward children, and if you can see here, this is the Daily Mail. It says fury over family-friendly film adaptation of George Orwell's Animal Farm that blames capitalism and has a happy ending. And anybody who's read, I don't want to be a spoiler here, but anybody who's read Animal Farm knows that not really that happy of an ending. It's a little bit. It's sort of a dystopian novel in many ways, even though it has to do with farm animals that are talking to each other. Right. But yeah, it's and by the way, just in case, I wanted to bring up another famous quote. This is where the saying comes from: all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
Right.
That is the key quote in this, and it has to do with socialism, right? Because the whole idea behind the story is that the animals feel like they're being mistreated by the farmer, which is in the analogy to the Russian Revolution, that's supposed to be the Russian czars or nobles or whatever they were back then. And so they rise up and take control, and they do it under the guise of communism, right? The idea that, hey, we're all going to be equal, we're all going to share, and so what winds up happening inevitably, though, through both Orwell's telling, and it's kind of inevitable from an economic standpoint too, but you wind up, when you have everybody sharing, somebody has to make decisions now when that is shared property about how it's going to be allocated, right? Because you can't take a vote every 2 seconds on everything that you want to do. So you have to put people in power. And of course, the people in the central planners in the story are the pigs. They're the smart ones. So they wind up being the central planners. And of course, everything eventually winds up favoring the central planners. And the other animals are just as bad off, if not worse, by the end of the story as they were initially, which is exactly what happened under communism. Right? So, but let me play the video real quickly, and then I'll get your quick take on it, because I think this video will help show people a little bit about what the cartoon movie is, just a few clips from the movie, and it has Nick Gillespie of Reason talking to the director, and so you can kind of hear it from his own mouth what his thoughts were with the movie.
Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy.
4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
And all animals are equal.
I want that farm. Pigs and humans working together. I like the optics.
Oh, we love the optics.
Animal Farm, a cautionary tales.
So clearly they've updated the story a little bit, but did they change Orwell's clear messaging that essentially socialism or communism inevitably requires a central planner, and those central planners, the pigs in the story, wind up getting everything? Let's find out from this interview where Nick Gillespie of Reason magazine interviews Andy Serkis, the director of this new adaptation of Animal Farm.
This is an adaptation and an updating of it. So obviously it's not about communism. And in Animal Farm, Napoleon, the lead pig, the most equal of all the equal pigs is Stalin. How does it work here? Because the system that you're kind of critiquing is not socialism, right? Or international communism. Where do you go with that?
No.
So if it's not socialism, then what is it?
This is not a sort of a stab at any one leader in terms of the allegory. It's not. We're not saying this is this political leader, but it's having a go at all of the framework of what controls us and what is authoritarian around the world.
Could he possibly be shifting the messaging away from the ills of socialism and toward, say, capitalism or corporate power or corporate greed?
Are you drawing an equivalence between corporate power and totalitarianism, or where is that line being drawn?
We're drawing a parallel between misuse of power across all aspects of modern life. So whether it's in the office space, whether it's in as part of a big corporation.
So there you go. I mean, a corporation. Now, he was a little bit non-committal, saying there may be, any system of power, but clearly he's steering it away from socialism, communism, as being the inevitable, cause, which was the key point of Orwell's story, is saying, exactly. Hey, look, this stuff is going to go bad. You have a lot of happy thoughts when you start with socialism, and it inevitably goes bad because of the central planner problem. So yeah, go ahead, Leon.
Well, the original story, of course, we know what it was about, right? That socialism and communism end up creating this essential. Though they promise the utopia, okay, they end up with everybody being equal. They always end up with some central planner, and with a whole hell of a lot of power, because these systems always require two things. They require central planners, and they require the use of force to create this equal society.
Exactly, because what happens when everybody doesn't agree, right? I mean, if we're all sharing, yeah. So go ahead, Leon. Sorry.
No, but that's a good point you're making. Exactly. So what happens when everybody don't agree? What about happens when you and I disagree on certain things? Whatever it is. But this is just a problem. The use of force is where the problem comes in. And all communist societies and socialist societies end up using force, whether they say, well, it's they may use force in friendly ways, like the IRS, I guess. They may say that's use of force in friendly ways. That's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But what these leftists try to do, and obviously this guy with the new remake of Animal Farm, these leftists always try to make communism and socialism as the ideal, and capitalism is really, it does produce all these sort of unequal outcomes. Some people making more money than the others. Some people doing all these things in these capitalist democratic society. But it's only in this socialist communist world that we can find utopia of equality. And this is what these leftists always try to do. And this is what they're trying to reflect now in Animal Farm, to make our children, and this is where the indoctrination continues, to have our children believing that capitalistic democracies are somehow evil, but is these socialists and the communists who will give us this grand, beautiful utopia of equality. The truth of the matter is, there's only one kind of equality that these systems produce, these socialist communist systems. There's only one sort of equality it does produce. It is the equality of misery. And these leftists, no matter how they try, they can never explain away that fact. Socialism and communism always produce the equality of misery. And you don't have to go far. We could just look here in the United States. We have many Indian reservations all around us. It's a very common, well-known, the societies that try to prepare.
Lately, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you don't even have to think of something abstract like an Indian reservation, because a lot of people might not. Just think about your government public schools, right?
Oh yeah, well that's even a better example, probably. Yes, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the public schools. Well, look at the public schools, where everybody is funded equally. We produce inequality and that kind of stuff. And
according to the planners, yeah.
According to the planners, according to the central planners. Yes, according to the central planners, yes. And everybody is so nice and wonderful because we all get in quote unquote an equal education, public education. That's what they claim. But the results are in. The socialist system are producing the quality of misery. Just look at the public education system we have here in this country today. These days, in a country, one of the greatest countries mankind have ever produced. And here we have this socialist aspect within our democratic capitalism, the public schools, completely controlled by the Democratic Party and the teachers' unions. Those are our central planners in this particular case. And what are they producing? Quality of misery. And this will continue until we wake up to the truth of these promises of this utopia.
Well, Leon, just like the pigs in Animal Farm, the teachers union winds up that they're the ones who get the most benefit out of it, right? I mean, absolutely. You look at what happens when we talked about this on the show before. We had Larry Sand on before, who's been an educator all his life. He's run us through all this. I encourage you to go back and look at those shows. But you can go look up the national report card. Go look that up online, and you can see that for California, it is like less than 25% proficiency for mathematics at I believe it's at the 8th grade level. So It's not much better at the 4th grade level. They try and compare these kids across the country, at 4th and 8th grade levels, and I believe they're doing it now at the 12th too. But you can see that it's just like horrifying what they're considering, and they only talk about progress. They never talk about absolutely how these kids are doing.
Right.
25% proficiency. That is nuts. You wouldn't accept that in anything else you do in life. If your car was failing 75% of the time, you wouldn't accept that. Same thing.
You wouldn't be buying a car. You wouldn't be buying a car from from the manufacturer of such a vehicle. Or if you're a grocery store,
you bought a loaf of bread and that brand was moldy 3 out of 4 times, you would not be happy with it.
Absolutely. But these are the kind of things, though, that you have to accept. In a socialist communist system, where your bread could be moldy, your car could be failing 75% of the time that they service it or whatever, but yet you're still forced, again, the use of force, you're still forced to buy the moldy bread, and you're still forced to accept the fact that your car could be non-functioning 75% of the times. And this is the kind of equality they produce, the equality of misery. And this is exactly what is happening in public education today, that you're seeing so many of our children not being educated. This is horrible. But this is the kind of dystopia that socialism and communism produces. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And this is the sad thing for me about it, because I found this book to be a real eye-opener. I thought it was just amazing. I shared it with my daughter when she was under 10, and we had a good time reading it together, and it really kind of inoculated her against some of these, ideas about why some of these socialist ideas don't work. And it's now the idea that so many kids aren't reading today. They're going to see this movie and they're going to think, yeah, I saw Animal Farm. I know what they're talking about. And you're not going to know, right? You're going to literally have missed the whole point of Orwell's warning. That's what's scary about this. And it's being put out by Angel Studios too, which is kind of a conservative, sort of studio set up. So it's kind of a little bit alarming that they bid on this one. But yeah, anyways, it's
I mean, if the guy who was interviewed on the little clip you just played,
Circus, his name is,
yes, but if he was being truthful in terms of the use of power across all sectors in society, I mean, maybe you can make the point that the abuse of power will always produce this sort of corruption, in that absolute power always corrupts the soul and always produce bad outcomes for the people who you have power over. If that was kind of the message out of the movie, I have not seen the movie, I've only read a few things about it. If that was his message, that central power is dangerous, regardless of where it's being produced or where it's being practiced, or wherever that power is being exercised. If that was the message, I could probably agree with the remake. But I doubt, given I think these people, politics are on the left, so I doubt that is a message.
Well, Leon, from what I've heard in the interviews that I've seen so far, he is preaching against authoritarianism in the movie. But the big issue is not seeing the connection to socialism, right? Because if you disconnect that in the book from socialism, the book really lays out a roadmap of why communism, socialism goes bad. The bigger you make government into this, the more and more likely you are to concentrate that power into central planners, which is what turns it authoritarian, right? I mean, there's just no way around it. And that's the core message. So just saying, hey, we're against authoritarianism, isn't everybody unless they're the authoritarian, right?
Exactly.
The value is that it's tied to socialism in that book, and it shows a roadmap of how the socialism leads to that. And that's what, I just am upset that, even if they're got this nice kind of empty message that authoritarianism is bad. Yeah. Okay.
But but they're talking about a remake of Animal Farm, and even though they might be able to show, even if the movie is indeed showing that authoritarianism is bad, it really is a diversion from the original story of Animal Farm, though it still keeps the Animal Farm name. So it's still kind of problematic regardless how you go. Whatever message they're trying to produce is still seriously problematic in that they are moving away from George Orwell's message in the original Animal Farm. So in the novel, I should say. So I don't know. I doubt this will succeed at the box office. I don't think it will, but we'll have to see.
Well, and it's these lies of degrees or lies of omission by degree that are happening here that cause people to essentially be living in a reality that's not quite right over time, and that's kind of what's happening here, right? There, that the past is being altered here, and pretty soon the lie becomes the truth, right? If more people kids wind up being exposed to the movie than ever reading the book, pretty soon that's what everybody's going to think when they're talking about Animal Farm, which is very hard. So, but maybe there's some good that'll come up. Maybe this will lead to more people reading it, but I have my doubts.
Yes, yes.
Well, one of the things we also wanted to get into today was the Southern Poverty Law Center has been charged with defrauding donors on their payments by essentially using some of that money to fund extremist groups. Now, there's some complexity to the story, and I have a video to show, but I don't want to show it until we're past the public access break here, because otherwise we'll be right in the middle of the video. But yeah, this is something where this is an organization that essentially their mission is to root out hate groups. They have this hate map, and we'll see a little bit about that in the video. And they claim that they're fighting intolerance, and and they've done some past work. I guess if you go back far enough, that's good. But I guess the supply of hate wasn't enough to keep them going. So they started ginning it up a little bit, it sounds like, in order to keep those funds coming in. And so that's a little bit of the scary part of what we're going to be talking about here. And here is the Department of Justice has indicted them through a federal grand jury. So it's not just them saying this. They've at least convinced a group of people, outside of the Trump administration, that, hey, there's enough to the story that it's worth prosecuting. So yeah. Well, if you're watching us on public access, you're going to have to catch the rest of the show online at knuckleheadsofliberty.com. So you can go check us out there, where we're going to dive into a video shortly about the SPLC scandal and get into some of the specifics of that. But go check us out there if you want to see that and everything else we're going to talk about tonight. So Leon, you ready for this movie here, or the video clip?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's dive into the story here so you guys can all kind of see a little bit about what's going on with the SPLC.
Today, a few minutes ago, in the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups.
Wow. So the DOJ has obtained an indictment that unmasks the Southern Poverty Law Center as, well, essentially it alleges that they have been funding, propping up some of these hate groups. Let's find out a little bit more about the specifics of the indictment.
As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
John Stossel put together a pretty good piece on Stossel TV that I'm going to take a few little excerpts from, because I think it really shows what some of the activities are that the SPLC has been up to and some of the damage it can do.
We can stand together against hate.
The center also calls the Family Research Council a hate group.
The definition of a marriage is what it's been for 5,000 years. It's the union of a man and a woman.
I often disagree with the council myself, but do they belong on this hate map?
When they don't agree with you politically, they're going to list you as a hater.
You are haters. You hate gays.
No, I don't hate gay people, and I know gay people, and I have worked with gay people.
So what's the big deal if Southern Poverty Law Center calls your group a hate group?
Once you become a hate group, you're a target.
Developing now, word of a shooting at the Family Research Council there in Washington.
One man was so enraged by what the Southern Poverty Law Center said about the Family Research Council, he went to their headquarters to kill people.
A man shot a security guard in the arm.
Fortunately, that guard stopped the man before he could shoot anyone else.
He told the judge that he was there to kill as many of us as possible because we were a hate group.
And the Family Research Council is not a one-off. There's many other groups that have been listed here. Moms for Liberty. I mean, we just had Beth Bourne on here from Moms for Liberty not long ago. Their group has been labeled a hate group by SPLC. Tucker Carlson has been labeled a extremist by the SPLC. So what could be the motive of the SPLC for doing all this?
I suspect the center keeps its hate list long because that brings in lots of money. Years ago, Harper's Magazine reported that the center was the richest civil rights group in America, one that spends most of its time and money trying to make more money.
How much money are we talking about, John?
They promised to stop fundraising once their endowment reached $55 million. But when they reached $55 million, they changed that to $100 million, saying that would allow them to cease costly fundraising. But when they reached $100 million, they didn't stop. They collected $200 million, then $400 million. Now they've got $730 million. Yet they still smear people to raise more money.
Much of which is in offshore accounts, Caymans and places like that.
How do you know?
Oh, we look at their 990s.
And it says Cayman Islands?
Yeah.
There you go. And I wanted to bring up a couple of these SPLC pages just so you can see some of the people that are listed here. Now, this is an SPLC list of groups that are on the hate map. And I want to point right out to you. PragerU is listed as a hate group. So, I mean, my God, almost all of us have watched a video or two, at least from PragerU, and it is anything but a hate group. Yes. What's that, Leon?
I have watched many PragerU universities, so I guess I should probably belong on the SPLC's list of haters and whatever else.
Yeah. Well, and hey, maybe, Leon, you'll get the privilege of being listed as an extremist, because you know who some of the other extremists are that are listed here? Well, there's Alex Jones. I mean, maybe some people, you know, after Sandy Hook might have thought something like that. But here's Tucker Carlson, as we said before. He is listed. Here's Matt Walsh, too, Daily Wire guy, the guy who did the movie What is a Woman? Which is actually, it's just questioning, you know, a lot of the woke ideology that's going on. And suddenly that makes you an extremist that needs to be put on this hate group, hate map list. And I mean, this is absolutely, you know, a chilling, I think, you know, but, you know, yeah, it's, I don't know, Leon, what are your thoughts on some of this?
Well, if you go back to the era of the civil rights movement, when Martin Luther King was still alive and shortly thereafter, I mean, the SPLC had done some good work. There's no doubt about that. We cannot take away that history. However, as the years progressed, the SPLC have taken up this moral self-righteousness and have aligned themselves with the left. And they believe that they can decide what is hate and what is not. They believe that they can tell you what is free speech and what is not. Because one of the people that they didn't talk about that was on the SPLC's list was Charlie Kirk. And he was assassinated. Now, I don't think his assassination has anything to do with the SPLC, but Charlie Kirk's...
Well, I don't know, Leon. I mean, you say have nothing to do with it. Who was the person who shot him? A trans activist who thought that Charlie Kirk was you know, essentially hateful towards trans people. Therefore, you know, I mean, he obviously thought that enough to kill him. And I mean, I don't know, a leftist who is, you know, anyways, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So what I probably should have said was that I don't know if there's any direct linkage. However, the fact that Charlie Kirk was on that list and the reason for why he was placed on that list you can easily see where someone could be triggered to the point of killing him, which is exactly what happened to him. So the point I'm trying to make there, as far as I know, we don't have any evidence that the SPLC was directly connected to Charlie Kirk's assassination. But the fact that he was on that list could have actually triggered his assassination, given the reasons that why he was placed on the list. But the SPLC have gone deep into the gutter. They claim that they want to stop the hate. They claim that they want to stop people like the Ku Klux Klan, like the neo-Nazis. But when they are paying people to go and gin up everybody and gin up the right, the Klan and all this. Imagine this organization that claimed to be a civil rights organization is actually paying some of the very same people who Martin Luther King stood against, like the Ku Klux Klan, like the neo-Nazis, and all of these people who never wanted civil rights as it is long ago defined, not now, as was long ago defined. These people never wanted civil rights for blacks and other minorities. And the SPLC have not gotten in bed with them because there's not enough racism in America. There's not enough divisions between the people to keep their organization going. So now, since the supply of racism have been diminished somewhat, I'm not saying it's non-existent, but the supply of racism have been diminished so much, the SPLC decides that they have to create some. They have to create some supply. And they do that by paying money to people who they should never be in bed with. And this is quite disgusting if all these allegations are true. This is quite disgusting. Even that hoax of Donald Trump that they said, he said, they have find people on both sides.
Well, and we'll get to that one in a little bit, Leon. It's hard not to say that, but these are the numbers that they post on their webpage, that are tied to this hate map, that we talked about and that Stossel was showing in his piece on this. But when they're listing people, groups like Moms for Liberty and PragerU are in this batch. They're assuming people like Tucker Carlson are extremists who need to be warned against at this site.
Yes.
This is nuts, right? I mean, you can't trust any of these numbers, and that's part of the problem, right? I mean, it's you kind of feel like SPLC just did a Jesse Smollett on us, right?
they show like hell did. I mean, there's this guy. He's a British citizen by the name of Majid Nawaz. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was placed on the SPLC's list of extremists and all that kind of stuff because he was he's a Muslim, but he was helping the British government, and I think might have been some U.S. government agency. I think I'm not sure about that part, but he was certainly helping the British government fight radical Islam. And well, Majid Nawaz actually ended up suing the SPLC and actually won. I think he won $3.4 million from them. But there are so many people who are innocently placed on these lists of the SPLC, and it's just horrible. Ayan Hirsi Ali, another person, well, she's no longer a Muslim, but she was born a Muslim and had to run away from I think she was born in Somalia, if I'm not mistaken. Had to run away from that whole system of religion and governance, and she is also on the list. I think she still is, if I'm not mistaken. But this is the kind of things these people were doing. I mean, these people were just poisoning the communications of people who are just trying to do a decent day's work by warning us about certain aspects of within our society.
Well, I was going to say, what's so upsetting about the Ayan Hirsi Ali thing, she was literally standing up for women's rights, right? I mean, the idea that in the Islam, women have an inferior set of rights. And so that's what she was standing for. It wasn't that she just hated people because they're Muslim. It's that she wanted to stand up for her rights and other women's rights, and the idea that, yeah, so it's just absolutely nuts. Sorry, Leon, go ahead.
No. I think, I mean, these are all valid points being made. So the SPLC have really gone into the gutter. That's what they are. They have gone into the gutter, and they still try to hold this moniker of, oh, we are a civil rights organization fighting hate. They are not. They're looking for hate. They're looking to gin up hate so that they could keep up their fundraising. It all comes back to that almighty dollar, which is, I don't have a problem. People in a capitalist society seeking their pursuing their happiness in whatever form they wish to do so.
Yeah.
But when you're making claims, false claims apparently, against certain sectors of society, and then you are ginning up some of the very hatred that you're claiming that you're trying to fight, I think there's a large problem of hypocrisy here, and there's a large problem of a lot of falsehoods and a lot of fraud, which would probably be attached to a lot of what you're doing, because you have.
Well, and just to be clear too, I mean, what the crime here is, even though maybe a moral crime to sit there and accuse people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali of being an extremist, and putting him on their hate group list or whatever. The idea is that that's still kind of free speech. That what they're actually being indicted for is the idea that they told their donors that the money is to be used in one way, but that the money is actually being used to keep maybe some of these groups alive. I mean, it almost sounds like some of the accusations we've heard against Bibi Netanyahu, maybe helping to prop up Hamas, right? So, I mean, you could say that there seems to be almost a little bit of similarity here. Because it's like that was a big issue of how, to help him stay in power, right? If there's this bad guy on the other side, well, I mean, if you're the SPLC, and hey, if we're in the 90s and most of us are becoming relatively colorblind, we don't see a problem with people just because of their skin color, then hey, well, there's not much work left for the SPLC anymore, right? Got to get that hate machine revved up.
Yes. But you see, this is, Jason, this is the problem with these racial grifters we have in our society. The SPLC, Rainbow Coalition, which was led by Jesse Jackson, God rest his soul. We have Ibram X. Kendi. We have Al Sharpton and his national and national something network, National Action Network or something like that. We have these racial grifters who, when there's not enough racism for them to quote unquote fight, they're never really fighting it, but quote unquote fight, they want to go out and make sure there's enough. Because every time we have an incident of, say, like a police shooting, you see all these cockroaches come from underneath the rock from which they live. And all of a sudden, racism in America, we have to fight this racism in America. And while we're doing that, I need some contributions to keep up my wonderful standard of living. These racial grifters have become rich from these claims of racism. And you look at the SPLC, I mean, based upon the numbers you just reported, they are an organization, yes. But I'm sure the employees of certainly the heads of those organizations probably have $1 million paychecks in terms of their annual compensation and all that. They become rich from this racial grifting. And this is a nastiness that's going on in what is now called the civil rights organization. The NAACP is falling into that right now. At one time, nobody could argue the NAACP was a very honorable organization. There's no doubt. There are people I know who are still associated with the NAACP. But the NAACP is becoming an organization of racial grifting. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they like, for instance, one of the things the NAACP opposes is school choice. Now, could you imagine that? Black children are suffering the most in this country from this miseducation that's going on right now as we speak. And there's the NAACP fighting school reform. And who are they in bed with? The NAACP, who's in bed with? The teachers' unions, they're in bed with the Democratic Party.
Yeah. And
explain that to me.
Yeah. this wealth often goes hand in hand with political power. And that kind of brings us to a transition to the next story, which Leon kind of alluded to. But one of the specifics that they were indicted on here was their role in Charlottesville, which has had huge implications on the political scene and possibly Biden's ascension to office. So let's watch a quick video. And in fact, Charlottesville, just in case you don't remember, that was the tiki torch thing, right? so let's watch a quick video that will get us up to speed on some of the dishonesty that sprang from that particular event, and all of the grifting that happened afterwards, that as Leon was alluding to, the race hustlers that showed up afterwards, and some of them are very prominent.
The SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of one person and injured dozens more. This particular person being paid by the SPLC allegedly received approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years.
And of course, the SPLC, it appears, was right at the center of manufacturing divisive hate on one of the most pivotal issues in presidential politics, and that has to do with the very fine people statement that Trump made during the fallout of the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally that wound up in one protester on the left dying when a car wound up plowing into her as both sides clashed. So let's hear a little bit about the actual press conference that Trump was involved in and what he actually said.
You're putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
And here is the very fine people comment.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
And within 20 seconds of saying that, after giving the comparison to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson statues with the Lee statue that was in question during this protest, Trump says specifically that he wasn't talking about the neo-Nazis or white supremacists. Here it is. You can't miss it, and yet you're going to see people keep acting like he never said it.
Statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
So let's see some of the people who kept promoting the lie of Trump calling neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. Let's see some of those people.
Why would you place your faith in somebody who instituted a so-called Muslim ban, who sat down for pleasantries with Holocaust deniers, who said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally?
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas, torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people.
And yes, they were informed many times that what they were saying was incorrect, but they just kept saying it. Got to keep that race hustle going.
Mr. Vice President, are you aware that you're misquoting Donald Trump in Charlottesville? He never called neo-Nazis very fine people?
Well, he called all those folks that walked out of that, they were neo-Nazis, shouting hate, their veins
But he said specifically that he was condemning them.
He did not. He said he walked out and he said, let's get this straight. He said there were very fine people in both groups. They're chanting anti-Semitic slogans, carrying flags.
So there you go. That's you know, the race hustle and keep the hate and division alive,
of course,
right? Because it's good for politics, I guess, of your side. It's good for your own power base. It is just cancer for the country, right? Keeping stuff alive. So
it goes back to the to what we started the show with, Jason. That quote by George Orwell. And you know, I gave you the one, an equivalent one of repeating a lie so many times, and then all of a sudden it becomes true. And you know, I bet you, even to this day, though Trump, that interview you played, that is widely available on the internet. I will bet you to this day, if we did a poll of mostly people on the left, I would bet money 95% of them will say Trump said that there were very fine people on both sides, and on one side he was talking about neo-Nazis. When Trump specifically said that he should be condemning the neo-Nazis and whoever else he said, whatever, he said that. But yet the truth came from this lie because it was repeated so many times. And this is the horrible thing that is happening within our society. Free speech is a great and wonderful thing, but what do you do when you can't even penetrate? You can't penetrate and correct the lie. Because and the big problem here also, I have to say really and truly, and this, when you're talking about this sort of thing, it's the media. The mainstream media have chosen a side, and that side is obviously the left. And you know, and the only reason that this could stay alive for this long is because the mainstream media refuses to show us what the truth is. Even though, look how easy you can get it. Look at, we can play it right now. We can see what Trump actually said or what he did not say. But yet, the lie has a life and is continually perpetuated. And this is horrible, because lives are being ruined over that lie. Many, many lives. Joe Biden claimed that he ran for president because of that lie. Well, he ended up being president, which is a whole different discussion about how he did that. But he ended up being president, I guess, partly based upon that lie. And this is where George Orwell's words are correct. You repeat a lie too often. He didn't say it the way I'm saying it. You repeat a lie too often, it becomes true. It becomes true.
Yeah. The past was erased. The erasure was forgotten. The lie became the truth. And that's certainly the way that particular lie appeared to everybody about the very kind people on both sides. But I did want to take it back, though, to the idea that, you know, what we talked about earlier, the solution to bad speech is good speech, right?
Yes.
And instead, you know, because this is the problem, right? I mean, the real problem here is that government has gotten so big, and the fact that we're all tied together, because the free market solution is, if you got some crazies who believe, you know, that the earth is a square, or we're on a, you know, a plane that's on a turtle's back, or out in space, whatever the weird view is, those people will essentially just be ostracized in a marketplace, right? I mean, they'll have their beliefs, and they can have their beliefs, but if they're crazy and non-productive, there's a cost to having those beliefs, right? Yes, and I mean, people won't want to hang around you because they'll think there's something wrong with you if you profess to have those beliefs. But when you can co-opt government and force those beliefs onto everybody else, that's when the problem happens. And that's what we're seeing with the trans athletes in girls' sports, you know, and locker rooms. We're seeing this all over the place, where these lies have been these deranged views of reality. Maybe a lie is too malignant, but these deranged views of reality are being forced through government onto all of us. And that's where the problem is, right? Because if there's just a group of people who wanted to go off and do their deranged Olympics by themselves, right? Who cares? Nobody's going to watch. They'll go out in the middle of a field and, do their thing, and we'll all get along just fine. Right? It's when they force it on everybody else is the problem. And so, a small government really is the way out of this. But I did want to say that, on this particular lie, we've just seen one of the potential consequences, right? How many times have they tried to assassinate Trump, because they believe he is a hateful racist? And so just happened again this last week. And so I have a quick video to share of that as well, because I think, you can tie a clear line between all of these lies that are just being crammed down our throats and, people being attacked who aren't part of the cult.
This morning, the suspect in the White House Correspondents' Dinner attack is charged with trying to assassinate the president, along with multiple weapons charges. Officials releasing images of the weapons he was allegedly carrying when he ran past that security checkpoint trying to storm the ballroom: a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, a .38 caliber pistol, and 3 knives. They say he fired one shot, agents fired back. Officials say a Secret Service officer shot in his bulletproof vest may have been hit by friendly fire.
We want to get that right, so we're still looking at that.
So who was the suspect who had been radicalized to try this assassination?
Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says 5 shots were fired at the suspect, 31-year-old Cole Allen, who was tackled to the floor and was not hit by any bullets. Allen, described as highly intelligent and shy, appeared to be sharply critical of President Trump's policies. Sources say a social media account that belonged to Allen appears to have shared multiple posts, including one saying Trump must be removed from office. He has no capacity to do the job, and he's destroying the U.S. Another reading: the aspiring dictator dismantling your country and your institution does not give even the tiniest expletive about your little Glee Club protest.
And the White House is casting blame toward the left and Democrats for this latest assassination attempt. And remember, this is the latest of several. And just remember, too, that Democrats have been fantasizing about killing Trump ever since he first won office. So I don't know if you remember the Kathy Griffith photo where she has the fake decapitated head of Trump. So, yeah, just one of many things.
The White House blames Democrats for fueling multiple attacks that have targeted the president.
This political violence stems from a systemic demonization of him and his supporters by commentators, yes, by elected members of the Democrat Party.
President Trump says the Correspondents' Dinner attack justifies building his new White House ballroom, which has faced legal hurdles. Republicans are now introducing bills to get the ballroom over the finish line.
Yeah, and so there you go. I mean, if you keep poisoning, if you keep pumping divisive poison into society, people are gonna, that's how you get the Rwandan genocide, right? That's how you get all kinds of these terrible situations where people wind up killing their neighbors. It's because people are out there manufacturing hate, and it's just it's terrible. So
you talk about the manufacturing of hate and about the dissemination of bad information in a society that poisons the body politic or the body of society. And there are some really touching stories about what happened during the Rwandan genocide. It will be too long for me to go through all of them or go through any of them right now. But the poison of a society is real. It is truly real. In the Rwandan genocide, it was between the Hutus and the Tutsis were called the cockroaches, and eventually, what happened? They tried to eliminate the cockroaches. I think the Jews, one of their things was bloodsuckers of society, and what did happen? They tried to eliminate the Jews. You see, the whole first process is to dehumanize. And then after that is the elimination. And here we have a similar situation that is boiling over here in our society, because Trump is the leader of what we now commonly call the MAGA movement. MAGA standing for Made in America, Make America Great Again, I'm sorry. Made in America. It was made in America, but yes, make America great again.
Leon, I have to bring up this. You tell that lie long enough, and it's going to erase what MAGA means. And pretty soon the truth will be forgotten. They'll say "Made in America." sorry, Leon. Go ahead.
Oh, how you expect me to go on after that, Jason? Really? But if you remember during the Biden administration, when they were talking so much about this MAGA movement is almost some evil thing, Trump is being compared to Hitler. They're saying that the ICE, which is a legally constituted agency of government, whose budget is voted on in Congress every single year. Now we hear that ICE really and truly is Trump's Gestapo, and if you remember, the Gestapo is really the real bad guys in Hitler's Germany. But what is happening is really and truly at a larger scale is the dehumanization of Trump and his movement. And if you could dehumanize them enough, then killing them is easy. It's easily justified. If you could kill Hitler, why would you not? If you could kill.
And remember that when Trump first came to office the first time, a lot of people who wore MAGA hats were being attacked on the street. So
Exactly. And I'll tell you even a more personal story than that. I have a MAGA hat. I never wear it outside the house. I have never worn it outside the house. And that's an interesting thing that we could talk about at another time.
Your closet MAGA.
Closet MAGA. Yeah, I'm closet MAGA on my podcast. But the point is though, this dehumanization is really a problem. Okay? Because, and that is going on in our society. We have now seen 3 serious assassination attempts, 3 against Donald Trump. And the story that is really beginning to bother me about all of this? Oh, they were just loners. Loners who did it. They didn't have any connection to anybody else. We heard that about the guy in Butler, who tried to kill Trump. He came very close to actually doing it. I mean, if Trump hadn't turned to watch his graph or his chat, he would have gotten it somewhere in there. We have the other situation in, I think it was Florida, where a guy had gotten very close as his gun was coming through.
Mar-a-Lago, yeah.
Mar-a-Lago, right? His gun was coming through the fence, and a Secret Service saw it and shot at the guy. The guy took off. Then another thing too is this one now, where this guy got into the hotel, ran past the security checkpoint, and started firing, or the Secret Service started firing. Somebody fired, obviously. Now there's an issue about there was a Secret Service agent who was shot. He was wearing a vest. Now there's even some issue about who shot him. It looked like it might have been friendly fire. We don't know. But the point is, though, we are seeing these people attempting this assassination on the president, and they're always loners. They never connected to anybody else. It's always, well, yeah, he did it. Yeah, he did it. But it didn't look like he had any help. There was no conspiracy. I mean, one time you could say, okay, yeah, I can understand that. But 3 times?
Yeah.
The first one, this guy got within 150 yards of the president. How could that happen?
And I was actually listening to Matt Walsh too the other day, and he was saying actually there's been 6 attempts. It's just that some of these others didn't get as much news because they didn't get nearly as close. There was one guy he literally talked about who had gotten a hold of a forklift, and his plan was to attack the limo when it came through, but the forklift, I guess, got caught up in some fencing. So but they literally let the guy off, apparently, because they said he had some kind of mental issues or something. So anyways, but just keep in mind too that we're talking about Trump here, but this spills out into everybody. We talked about Charlie Kirk as well. Anybody who's speaking out, when you start putting this poison out there, they become the focus of the people who are radicalized, with hate, essentially, right? I mean, they've been programmed. The insidious thing is they think they're going after hate, but they literally have become consumed with hate themselves, right?
Yes.
And so,
and propagate that hate into society. But before we leave this point, Jason, I want to make the larger point. There's something going on in our society that is quite dangerous. I do not know how people could get so close to the president of the United States. Okay, I do not know. And all of these people, they are not like special forces. They're maybe ex-special forces. They are not that. Maybe they're ex-SEALs. They're not that. They're ex-Delta Force. They are not that. You know, people
by the way,
are
this
trained.
Coleman guy, the latest one was just a guy who had a mechanical engineering degree, and he was a teacher of sorts. He wasn't actually a government.
Here in California, actually, here in California. Yeah. Yes. So if we're not seeing people making these attempts, people who say, well, if we see somebody, say ex-Delta Force, ex-SEALs, or ex-Army Ranger or something like that, and you see them try to do these sort of things, and they know how to get by security, and they know how to do this sort of thing, maybe you could understand it. But these guys are just like normal, average people. Maybe they know how to use a gun, or maybe they know how to use a rifle, but we know nothing special about them that will indicate why they could get through the Secret Service security so easily. This is a problem. I don't know. I don't want to sit here and sound very conspiratorial or anything like that. I don't know if there's something wrong within the Secret Service that is allowing these things to happen, or is there some dark force in our society that are helping these people and we have not been able to penetrate that conspiracy? I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know. But I do not understand how regular people who have no specialized training could get so close to the president. I really don't know.
Well, it'll have to be a conspiracy to untangle another day because we're getting close to the end of the show here. And we always like to leave on our knucklehead noise patrol, which I think ties a little bit into Orwell as well, when he talked about his newsspeak inside of 1984, and where words just morphed into whatever the government needed them to be. And here we have a story about Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and she's been going around equating evictions to violence, right? And so here's a little video to dive into that.
Eviction is an act of violence, and we have to do everything to prevent it. It is devastating for the families. It degrades the health of communities. There is great stigma associated with it. It affects your credit score. Housing is a human right. It is a predictor of health outcomes. It's essential for social and economic mobility. And so my legislation is making sure they have access to legal counsel.
And this isn't the first time Ayanna Pressley has been equating evictions to violence. She's actually been doing it all the way back to the COVID lockdowns.
Evictions are disruptive and violent. These are violent events which destabilize families, but make it more expensive and challenging to rent safe housing in the future, to apply for credit, to borrow money, or to purchase a home. Currently, almost a third of Black renters are at risk of eviction.
And notice she was only concerned about the Black renters. So it's only violence against one group. So there she is, dividing us again. And it's funny, I didn't even realize it, but this story that I have oh no, that's 2026. I was misreading it. I was thinking maybe it went back later than the COVID thing. But yeah, I mean, this is nuts that, and I think it goes into Orwell's newsspeak type of thing where, when the language is being controlled and morphed, we can't even have an honest conversation about things. I mean, if you make a contract to somebody to pay them to live in a piece of property or to borrow a car or anything else for a certain amount of time, that is a contract. That is a transfer of property over a specific period of time. You do not have a right to anything beyond the contract. And she is saying that if you need to go beyond the contract and they don't want to go, it's not mutual, then it's suddenly violence. This is nuts. I mean, this is such deranged thinking. It's like, how can you coexist with somebody like this if you think that anytime you don't agree with them, they're going to say, well, you're guilty of violence. Right? To me, you can see now suddenly how somebody like Tucker Carlson or Prager or somebody else like that winds up on an extremist hate group list, right? Because, oh, you didn't agree with them, so you must be a horrible, violent person. Right? This is just absolute nuts. I mean, what do you think of this issue of conflating violence with evictions?
But this is the part. I mean, yeah, you can see the absurdity in this. But this is the part of what we were talking about earlier, which is racial grifting. Now, notice at the end of, after talking about all this thing about evictions is really violence and on and on and on. And at the end, she tells us that is about black families. So I guess white people don't get evicted at all. I guess it must be. I don't.
It's not violent if you evict a white person.
I guess that's probably a better explanation. It's not violent that whenever we kick out, those white devils, it's okay, right? That's okay. But if we kick out a poor black person who need a little bit of sympathy, then it becomes violent. But this is part of the racial grifting that is going on in our society. That where we think we have to make decisions based on race, based on something that none of us can change. You can't change the fact that you're white, and I cannot change the fact that I'm black. Okay? But
Elizabeth Warren can change the fact that she's Indian by writing a book called Pow Wow Chow. She's not Indian, by the way. Trump actually debunked her on that. He challenged her. If you've forgotten the story, he challenged her to take a DNA test, and she did. And it turned out she was less Indian than he was.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But the thing is though, this racial grifting is truly dangerous because this is appearing up in so many aspects of our society. So many different aspects. People looking for ways to manufacture this racism that for the most part has been diminished. I'm not saying, I said this before, I'm not saying it's gone, but it is so much diminished that people like this congresswoman could think about, we have to pass a law to protect people from those awful landlords from evicting them for not paying their rent. Well, this is how contracts work, as you pointed out, Jason. This is how contracts work. Contracts don't care about the color of your skin. Contracts is there's a contract between me and you, and if you want to live on my property, well, you could live on my property, but there are certain terms and conditions under which you must do so. People like these knuckleheads, or no, not knuckleheads, not our kind of knuckleheads, but these damn fools. These damn fools
in a bad way.
In a bad way, yes. These damn fools want to say contracts mean nothing. Contract making is in our constitution. And I guess the consequences, and thus the consequences of defaulting on your contract or your contractual obligations is also real in our constitution. And I don't know what the hell these people are talking about sometimes. They must have written some from the Communist Manifesto or something like that. Oh, it's violence, so we have to protect black people. Oh, it's violent, we have to protect black people. Why? Don't you believe in the equal protection clause if you're going to try to protect black people? Well, what about everybody else in our society? This is crazy and sick.
Contracts are the rule of law. If you think about it, I mean, that's the basis of a rule of law. And it's two people coming together and making a voluntary agreement about doing something. And she wants to undermine all that based upon whatever her special preferences at the time, right? And I mean, justice is two people coming together for a voluntary association. I mean, I can't think of anything more moral than that, But if you're not living up to your end of the contract, then, you're going to need to renegotiate or that contract is going to be over, right? Because so I just, it's nuts. But I mean, the way people of the left think about this stuff, it just completely invalidates any system of moral justice. That somehow you can make a voluntary agreement with somebody, but then that's not good enough for anything later on. You've got to, you've just got to go with whatever feels right to her subjectively.
Exactly, whatever feels right. And this is just a problem. whatever feels right. Two people voluntarily got together and make a contract about a rental piece of property. Voluntary. And now these fools like Ayanna Presley, whatever the hell her name is, now wants to use the force of government after the contract had been breached by one party or the other. Now she wants to use the force of government to keep that person occupying the property of another person. How horrible is that? Talk about the force of government being used against its own citizens. This is as horrible as it gets.
Yeah. And you know what another contract is that I think is absolutely horrible and she would not want to live under? Go live in one of these Islamic countries and be a woman who's married and see how easy it is to get, the contract does not treat the woman as an equal partner in that contract. So once the marriage happens, she has no ability to get out, right? I mean, the guy has all the ability to get out, right? But, we think about a contract here of marriage as two parties come together, they agree to a partnership, and at some point, maybe that partnership isn't working out, and so they want to dissolve the contract. It's a sad thing, but it happens. But, in some of these other places, you don't even have that freedom. I mean, this is the morality, right? That's morality. If a man and a woman come together and they voluntarily form a contract and they have provisions where if it's not working out, they can leave, that is morality. The system where you're forced, it's nuts. And anyways. So beating a dead horse, I think. Not speaking of Animal Farm either. Because, spoiler alert, a very sad moment does happen at the end that does involve a dead horse. So, maybe not in this new version that's been erased and rewritten.
Yes.
But anyways, Leon, I can't think of anything else here for the show today. You have any last thoughts?
I think we have to guard against all this racial grifting, all this gaslighting that we're seeing from our central planners who don't seem to understand that freedom and liberty are the most important things that we have in this society. And free speech, which is the one thing that we do hold on to, where we can debate in the marketplace of ideas, is of paramount importance in the whole mix of rights and freedoms that we have here in the United States. It's very important for us to guard against all these grifters who think they know better than us. Very, very important.
Yeah, well said. Well, if you're watching and you're going to catch us on the next show, think about what you can do in your community to move the ball for liberty between now and then, because you've seen there's so many people who are attacking our liberty one way or the other. Some of them, they don't even realize it. They just want to grow government because that's all they know how to do is grow government. But, if we're going to stop this encroachment on our liberty, everybody has to get involved. Everybody has to take a stand. So until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.